Really an honor to be asked to do this. A lot of experience with policy making, industry, and military leadership in the room. So thank you very much to the organization for the invitation to come up and speak. Okay, in classic Air Force fashion, I am going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you in that order. Then I'll hand it off to Lieutenant Colonel Ristom, and I think we have a few minutes for questions at the end. As mentioned, I am the commander of the 65th Special Operations Squadron in the 1st Special Operations Wing over at Hurlburt Field. I have the honor of leading 200 members, roughly, that fly MQ-9s all over the world in combat and in training throughout the year, including right now back at our home station in our squadron. All right. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. First of all, we've talked a lot about drones. We're going to talk about what are drones, okay? Next, we're going to talk about drones in combat. We're going to talk about drones in industry. And we're going to talk about where do we think that drone technology might be going in the future. And finally, a couple of key areas where we think the partnerships in the future are really going to help us develop this sector. Okay, so what are drones? Everything. Big ones, small ones, a whole lot of different platforms fall into this category. One of the things that we like to use, we like to reference, is the yellow and white slide there. It's a UAS chart. You'll hear references to Group 1s, Group 3s, in my case in the MQ-9, a Group 5. What does that mean? Basically, it starts with the picture there with the tiny experimental bug-sized drone in the hand. That would be a classic Group 1, very small, very short flight time drone. Moving up to Group 2 and Group 3, this is where you're starting to think about things like quadcopters, octocopters, some of those systems that are different systems that are, sorry, I lost my place there. Some of the more commercial type of applications that you see. So whereas Group 1 is going to be the very, very small drones, these are the things that you see, say, going through the store and seeing drone toys on the shelf, or in some of the commercial sector, some of the larger, like DJI-sized drones. The importance of talking about Group 1 to Group 3 is when we talk about small UAS. That's typically a shorthand for anything that falls in the category of Group 1 through Group 3. Once you get up to Group 4 and Group 5, the silhouette examples there in Group 4 would be the MQ-1, the Predator, and in Group 5 would be the MQ-9 Reaper. Now those are aircraft that are the size of aircraft. The MQ-1 is roughly the size of a small Cessna. The MQ-9 is roughly the size of like an A-10 attack aircraft, okay? So these are things that when you show up at the air show and you go, holy crap, I didn't know those were that big. Yeah, they are larger platforms, go all the way up to things like the Global Hawk, which is one of the biggest unmanned systems in the military. Drones in combat. A lot of talk today about what's on the horizon and what's new. Drones are new. I'm going to dispel that myth a little bit today. Drone technology is not new. Here are some examples of incorporation of drone technology throughout the history of combat. The first picture there, World War I, that's called a Kettering bug. There's your analog drone. Okay? It's basically a wind-up toy meets flying bomb. Okay? How that would work is if the target is that far away, I know I've got to wind the propeller so many times and set it on the rails and launch it towards the adversary. Once it gets to the end of its flight path, it stops flying, bomb tips over, now that aircraft has become a bomb. This was a technology worked at the same time that the Wright brothers were building their first aircraft in World War I. This was used successfully a total of 0 times in combat, but it's okay. We're starting to experiment. We're starting to get a feel for it. The second picture there, World War II, Operation Aphrodite. General Hap Arnold, the father of the modern Air Force, said, you know, we've got all these B-17s that are at their end of the service life. What if we pack them full of dynamite and use radio waves to fly them to targets in Europe? And a bunch of people said, you know what, that sounds just crazy enough to try. Now this was fielded in combat, so we made a step forward from the World War I efforts. It hit a whopping total of 0 targets successfully. Okay, so we're making progress. We're not there yet, but things are moving along. The third example there is the lightning bug from the Vietnam War. Okay, this is an air-launched drone. Its job was to look like something it isn't and get information we weren't supposed to have. Okay, during the Vietnam War, this was actually a top-secret program. One of its jobs was to fly around and look like an American fighter aircraft. Why? So it could find radars from SAM sites and identify where the bad guy's at. It would send that information back so that targeteers could plan missions in the future knowing exactly where the adversary was. Second job it had was sometimes to get blown up. Why? Because right before missile impact, it would actually get information about how that missile was targeting aircraft and send that back to military planners so that we could develop better technologies for our manned aircraft. So better chaff and flares, better countermeasures to keep pilots safe. Okay, so big steps in the 60s and 70s with these kind of programs. Moving on to the Gulf War, 1991. That is the RQ-2 Pioneer. That looks like something that the Catalyst group would have rolled out in about a week. Airframe is kind of put together. You can see the antenna on top, almost looks like an afterthought, maybe suction cupped on top. But one of the biggest things, one of the biggest changes with a platform like this is everything up to this point was about preparing for the next strike or getting target information for the next missions going out. With the inclusion of RQ-2s in 1991, now we start to see the inclusion of RPA in real time during the fight, not before, not after. So it brings us to today. That mighty warbird on the left side of the screen there is the MQ-9, fully loaded out with Hellfire missiles and 500-pound GBUs. It's a better looking platform. It's a more aerodynamic platform. It's got a long loiter time. But more importantly, the next step that this took for warfighting was I'm not part of the fight. I'm not preparing for the next step in the fight. I can actually be the entire fight. So one of the principles for targeting is find, fix, and finish the target. Can I find information in a very cluttered environment? Can I fix it down to I know what is information and what is actual targets, what is actual bad guys? And then can I do something like deliver munition to affect those bad guys on the battlefield? Platforms like these allow us remotely to fly aircraft into the battlefield, complete that find, fix, finish cycle, and land without potentially ever needing boots on the ground. Something that has been talked about, and I don't want to steal my partner's thunder here, the opposite of that, the low-end side. Let's talk high volume of platforms that are all relatively low cost. I think one of the biggest examples that we're seeing right now is in the war in Ukraine, the innovative use of a ton of very inexpensive drones in mass to achieve effects on the battlefield. One of the ways that they're doing this is just putting a lot of things in the way. Russia entered this war with arguably a much more powerful air force. And that's all well and good if you've got fighter and bomber aircraft that are high technology. One of the quickest ways that you can frustrate their efforts to bring that into the battlefield is put a bunch of small, cheap stuff in the way. Everybody that's ever flown an aircraft knows that, especially at low altitudes and stuff, what are you scared of? Birds. Yeah. Those can be one of the most dangerous things for an aircraft because you don't want to get a bird sucked into the engine. That'll take you out of the fight real quick. So the idea of using a whole lot of very cheap, very quickly manufactured, very replaceable assets almost harkens to a minefield kind of idea where you've made the airspace just more dangerous to bring your high-end platforms into. Another way is using them teaming directly with folks that are on the ground to be able to extend the range of what a normal human being's reach into the battle space is, whether you're talking across trench lines, around tree lines, around key terrain, the ability of a warfighter to use small drones over and over, even drones that are meant at the end to be destroyed as part of their attack, extends the range of the human being and keeps them a little further removed from the battle space and keeps them a little bit safer and able to continue fighting. The last example there is talking about cross domains. One of the things that we haven't touched on that I think is a very important thing that we do talk about in the DoD is multi-domain operations or joint all-domain cross-domain, all kind of synonyms for the same idea, which is if I learn something in one area, like on the water or in the air, how can I share those lessons learned with other folks that are in a different domain? Or how can I work together to achieve something here by actually doing something in a different domain against the adversary? One of the biggest things when we were talking about the airspace and the range, we're talking a lot about like data links and infrastructure and architecture. This industry, this sector is not just about the actual platform itself. It's not the Group 3 drone or the small submersible, big yellow picture on the back of the slide there. There is a lot of architecture that goes behind it. How do I tell that platform where to go? How do I get that platform to give information back to me? How do I get that platform to talk to other platforms? There's a lot of learning that is starting to occur within the DoD where those of us who do it in the air have a lot of lessons that folks that are doing that under the water can learn about computers and frequencies and architecture, what happens if you can no longer talk to your platform and it has to make decisions about what to do next to be recovered, things like that. So a lot of cross-domain, a lot of sharing, and a lot of learning in the DoD right now. But it ain't just us in uniform. Somebody asked a question earlier about, industry has such a huge role in the drone space. How are we coming together with things that work for industry and things that we need on the military side, or vice versa? And here are some examples of some of the sectors that are really benefiting from drone technology right now. This is not an all-encompassing list. I would have never made it here because I'd still be searching for examples online right now. But a couple of key ones, mapping, right? Whether you're doing aerial surveys with people in aircraft that you can now do with small drones, or whether you're able to endure and get more work done because you don't have the human factor of a tired pilot who needs to come down and grab some lunch and go back up. The ability of drones to increase mapping capabilities, as well as increases in the sensor capabilities, what's underground, what's through that foliage, what's through that triple canopy jungle. As those technologies advance to see what's going on, the ability to get it onto a drone and actually have these go up and do mapping technology is a huge expansion area over the last couple decades. And very similarly in agriculture. I think the cheat sheet picture there I've got makes it look like those drones are telling unmanned combines where to drive around the field and harvest. And actually, that's correct. That's one of the applications that's being used right now. Also field surveys, mega farms that have acres and acres and acres. You can send a team of drones up to go find out, am I fertilizing the right area? Because I can sense where the fertilizer is in the fields. Where are my high crop areas? Am I missing a spot when I water? Are there dead crops that I wouldn't have seen until it's harvest time? So the agricultural industry is using drone technology a lot right now. Deliveries. I'm really looking forward to when I can get that pizza delivered to my squadron with an Amazon drone, if it doesn't get shot down trying to get on base. This is something that I think when the idea came out, when certain parts of industry said, we're going to start using drones to deliver things to people, everyone kind of chuckled and said, that sounds like a sci-fi movie. All right? And then you start thinking about, well, what does that actually mean? That means less diesel fuel, less trucks on the road, less people driving freight from point A to point B. And all of a sudden you can kind of see there's actually some safety implications here. If anybody got stuck on 98 on the drive out, imagine a few less cars on the road that say Amazon or FedEx on the side. So I think this is something that it is an emerging technology, and as the things like battery technology and access to GPS and things like that continue to improve, we'll see this actually become more of a regular thing in our daily lives. And then the last thing, the fun one up there, air taxis. Putting a human into a vehicle that's not being operated by a human. I've been in the military for 18 years. I've been in RPA for 15 of those 18 years in AFSOC, and that still freaks me out a little bit. However, there are multiple companies, including the prototype that's on the screen there, that are looking at the same kind of problems. What are our traffic fatality numbers looking like today? What are drunk driving incidents looking like today? How do we manage congestion in urban areas or on interstates? Well, one of the ways is let's take that single layer road and turn it into multiple vertical layers of road. So again, the technology is about putting a person into an air taxi and moving them to point A to point B, but when you actually stop and think about it for a minute, there's a lot of other implications that come along with that that could affect our day-to-day life and our safety. Speaking of safety, drones in the future, honest broker, I don't know. Some of the folks in the room know better than I do. Some of the folks that were in the room earlier, they're still in school right now. They're going to know better than all of us. But a couple of examples, high-risk jobs. Okay? Some of the things that are emerging technologies right now, the examples I've got up are maybe involvement in search and rescue operations or in firefighting operations. Those kind of high-risk jobs are geared towards saving human lives. But we have to put other human lives at risk to do those jobs. So where can we use drones and some of the other topics like artificial intelligence and teaming and things like that to still keep people safe without the cost of having to put other people at risk in order to do it? Another example that we alluded to earlier in one of the briefings was drone teams, drone swarms. Anybody who's, I don't know, been to Disney, seen an awesome 4th of July light show, I think the most interesting one I saw was they made a King Kong out of lights that climbed the Empire State Building in New York City. It's really entertaining and it's really cool if you ever get an opportunity to see this. You know, thousands of drones at the Olympic Games opening, putting on a light show. But what's going on behind that? It's the ability to put hundreds or thousands of small drones in the sky that know how to talk to each other. They know how to work as a team. They know how to execute simple commands like don't fly into each other or else, you know, you lose a part of a stripe on the American flag. We can't have that. The idea that it's not just a one person and one drone team, but it is a one person or maybe not even a person at all and a large group of UAS that are able to talk and coordinate as a team. So some of the partnerships, as we work together as policymakers, educators, military members, as we work together in forums like this, what are some key areas that we see from our perspective that we should continue to work on partnerships? The first one, and I wish General was still here from the test wing so I could tee this one up to him, but access. This is a big one in our field of work. Policy, whether it's through the FAA or whether it's through local authorities, tends to lag when it comes to unmanned aircraft. And why? Because of that keyword unmanned. The safety record of RPA in the Air Force is actually one of the highest of any platform in our history of flying. So on the surface, folks like me that do this every day say, of course, we fly aircraft safely and effectively in a local airspace. But I also understand because I live here, there's banner towers, there's a ton of commercial traffic, there's other aircraft that are all trying to get the same range space to test weapons and things like that. So it's a crowded area. So the more we can continue to build partnerships when it comes to airports, airspace, ranges, and just getting a lot of good back and forth to show the safety record of these platforms and make sure that we're advocating and doing things smartly and safely to integrate. I think this is one of the best areas where we can continue to work together. Second one is civilian and military partnerships. I put the graphic up there for the Skill Bridge program, and for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's an opportunity for active duty members to spend their last few months of active duty working, basically interning for a company with intent to then go work for that company once they're done with their service. Our announcer here, Jake, is actually one of the captains who had the opportunity to do that, and he's working here at HSU in that Skill Bridge program. As a commander, the Skill Bridge process involves me meeting with my folks, finding out what they're interested in, and then approving them to go ahead and execute those kind of programs. I love being able to push folks out to local companies, UAS companies, teaming with area universities like OTC and some of the other local universities that either have or they're starting small UAS programs as part of their curriculum, or to local organizations like this. So that's something that from the military side, we'll continue to support those kind of programs. And then the last thing, you want to get kids excited about flying. Okay, for me, that was watching Top Gun on VHS and then hopping on my Nintendo, high-end technology in, the late 80s, early 90s, and going, this is awesome. What 10-year-old, 13-year-old me would be interested in today is the same kind of things that your organization, Dr. Hsu, and a lot of other organizations are working on right now, supporting STEM efforts, first-person drone racing, actual platforms, actual pictures of drones racing around. What a jump in technology. My daughters are 10 and 13 years old, and the things that they can do with phones and with AI and some of the toys and stuff that are available to them right now blows my mind, because I certainly didn't have that stuff when I was 10. So I think continuing to get the younger folks really excited that there are lots of different applications. This isn't just messing around, experimenting with some stuff, and then going and looking forward to being a boring old grown-up and having your office job. There is a pathway forming here where young people that are interested in these things are going to be the innovators. They're going to be the ones that have the next big idea moving forward. So I think as a boring old grown-up, I think one of the most important things that I can do, is to promote that for my kids and to advocate for that in education in general. All right, and with that, now I've told you what I told you, and I believe the next thing that we've got is the video from Secretary of Defense.
But we know why we were put here. We were brought here to rebuild the military, match capabilities to the threats of today. So while our adversaries have produced millions of cheap drones, before us, we were mired in bureaucratic red tape. Not anymore. In June, President Trump issued an executive order unleashing American drone dominance to bolster our drone industry and arm our warfighters, because that's what we're all about. So today, I'm rescinding restrictive policies that stifle production, and this will unleash American manufacturing and the ingenuity of our warfighters by doing 3 key things. First, we're going to bolster the U.S. drone manufacturing base by producing thousands of American-made products, prioritizing Buy American. We'll arm combat units with a variety of low-cost, American-crafted drones, leveraging our world-leading engineers and AI experts. And third, we're going to train as we expect to fight. Senior officers, I'll grab this because it's the memo. Senior officers must overcome bureaucratic risk aversion in budgeting, weaponeering, and training. So here's the memo we're signing today, delivered via drones. Here on the front lawn of the Pentagon, with some of our great warfighters flying them. This is the future. We're in the fight. We're in the fight to win it, and we're never going to back down.
So, quick question by show of hands. How many folks have seen that video? Okay, so actually a good majority of you. KP did a great job of talking about the introduction of small UASs, how the RPA community, the remotely piloted aircraft community, approaches how we do warfare, what we currently have on deck. He did a great job covering a lot of the fundamentals that can educate folks who have very little information or insight into what small UAS is. I'm going to take it a little bit more abstract and talk about not necessarily what I'm doing right now at Hurlburt Field as a DO at the 370th Special Operations Combat Training Squadron. Excuse me, that's a mouthful. But I'm going to talk about what I was doing for the previous 2 years before I came here. So I had the privilege to work on a team that was called the Chief of Staff of the Air Force's Strategic Studies Group. I apparently have a long history of organizations that are a mouthful to say. But what that group did was we were basically a prototyping think tank for the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force. We had the ability to operate at the Pentagon outside of the normal bureaucracy, have dangerous ideas, and then prototype and test those ideas internal to our organization with some partnerships and fundings and things that we had. And then if it didn't work out, we could divest the idea. We say we tried it, share that lesson and say, don't do this, right? Or don't do this under these conditions and the circumstances that we played with. And then we had others that showed promise. And when those showed promise, we could then resource or transition that idea to another organization that could take it to scale and further refine what that idea could look like. I bring that up because while I was on that team, I had an opportunity to work with another group of airmen and Marines and some Army folks who you saw in that video. So I had an opportunity to work with the drone operators that were flying behind the SecDef. I had a very, very small hand in facilitating that video and then having a chance to talk to the SecDef afterwards about what his visions and thoughts were. So in that memo that he signed, which all of that was done in one take, he literally walked out, said hi to everybody, they executed the video, we shook hands, talked for a little bit, and then he moved on about his day, which was quite impressive to me. But the memo that he pulled down and signed highlighted three key things. First, we're going to bolster drone manufacturing here in the United States. Second, we're going to employ drones and get them fielded into combat units within the DoD. And then third, we're going to train and simulate the training environments. So for those who aren't aware, we have a process in the military, and others have a similar process, where we take something from ideation into a general prototype fielding phase. We call it the .mil PFP process. So it talks about things like doctrine, how do we organize ourselves, how do we do training, how are we going to manufacture and sustain and do all these things. The interesting thing about the small UAS conversation is it's, in Mike Ristom's opinion, a small UAS should not be categorized solely as an aircraft. So right now, the way that we look at it from a policy and doctrine perspective is if I buy a $20,000 drone and then I hit a tree with the drone, I have to report that damage up to higher headquarters because it meets or exceeds a certain dollar amount threshold. One of the things that we proposed from the Strategic Studies Group was this initiative called CA3. And CA3 is Combat Air Power for All Airmen. If every Marine is a rifleman, why can't every airman be an airman? Do I have to put them in a C-130, in a C-17? Do I have to put them in an F-16 or an F-22 or an F-35? No. I can tell you as a prior MQ-1 pilot, as an MC-12 pilot, as a CV-22 pilot, if you have the aptitude to fly something in a simulated environment, especially something small and fast, you're an airman, right? One of the other things that we challenged is because it's not just an aircraft, what if we looked at it as a chassis? A small UAS can be many things. A chassis is just the aircraft itself. Yes, it has an engine. Yes, it operates in airspace. But should we think about these things more as a vehicle where you take the truck cab off the chassis, put something else on it, take the bed out, put another accessory in the back, right? That is an interesting way to think about drones in the future. It's a tool for us to use. We've also talked about the cost exchange ratio. So if I can employ a drone against a hardened target or take it into an environment where it becomes a decoy, then I'm forcing the enemy from a cost exchange ratio to expend a $100,000 missile on a $3,000 drone. And eventually you run out of magazine depth. Right? You only have so much ordnance on the front line to expend in battle. How can I replicate that with drone swarms, and what kind of dilemmas does that provide to the enemy? And then really finally is, how do I organize, train, and equip that capability? So if I take this nebulous thing that is small UASs, and I try to figure out who owns it. Aircraft belong to the A3, so our operations arm in the department. Well, yes, it's an aircraft, but what if I use it to do logistical runs? What if I use it to do roof inspections, which they're doing at Hurlburt? What if I use it to transport medical supplies? What if I'm conducting intelligence operations with it? Does it really belong in the 3? Should it belong in the 4, which is our logistics arm? Also has security forces, right? So now I have security forces folks who belong in the A4 conducting operations with folks who are in the A3. What does that command relationship look like? So as you start to look at small UASs, it's not as easy as go buy this drone, train on the drone, and then go employ the drone. There's TTPs that have to be developed, tactics, techniques, and procedures. You have to figure out who is allowed to operate it when, and then at what price point are we going to execute these things. So as we look at the future and what small UASs look like, from the Secretary of Defense level down into the departments, and then down from the departments into our major commands, in which AFSOC is one of them, we need to figure out what are our left and right limits, where are we able to assume risk, and just field things to try it. I can tell you at the ground level, there are airmen who are ready to fight and employ these things from not only an offensive perspective, but also from a defensive perspective. What about logistics, something that is neutral? So I'll cut it short because I know we're running a little long here, but I think with that, we can probably open it up to some questions if you're okay with that.